today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, and surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman and Robert Webb.
All right. Welcome to the show. It's Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you want to join the show. It's called Black Focus Radio. I'm trying to get my recording started here. All right, so welcome to Black Focus Radio. It's our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me. Also, you can hit me up on Facebook. You can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit me up on Instagram. And you certainly can hit me up on YouTube as well. All of that stuff is out there, so be sure to check out the show. And by the way, make sure you download the Joynet Radio app to make sure that everybody can see, so you can carry the show with you everywhere you go. And of course, if you missed any of the shows, you can now go out and check out the shows as it relates to the podcast. And our show is available on any podcast that's out there. The main ones, Apple and Google. We're on about 8 different platforms, okay? So there's really no reason whatsoever that you cannot follow the show. Got a fun show for you today, an interesting show as we do every day. I will tell you that my good friend and classmate, former Little Rock Central High alum, Patrick Oliver, will be in today about 12:30. And we will talk to him about a couple of the new books that he has written. Patrick is over at Hall High, I believe, today. Let's see. Patrick is over at Hall High. Was just kind of a headline kind of jumped at me. And he'll be in today to talk a little bit about his book. And those of you out there who are authors, you might want to stay tuned. I am currently working on updating my last novel, and I'm currently working on my latest novel called Mind Jacked. Here in a couple of months, probably around, let's say, I want to say probably around February 1st, I'm going to launch a campaign where you can pre-purchase the book as well. So stay tuned for that. I think that way it'll be cheaper by pre-purchasing it as opposed to doing it when it becomes available on the shelf. Okay? And I'm going to try to get all of that done because I am expecting to have some surgery either in late February or early March. So I want to get all of that out of the way if at all possible. Okay? So I'll keep you posted on that. And then I've got another book called Blue Chip Down that will be out hopefully once I get Mind Jack done. It'll be out later in the year. Okay. Robert Webb is still out today. He's still in Missouri. I hope he didn't get arrested. Robert, call me. Well, no, don't call me on those high-ass jail phones. Okay, they charge you like $20 a minute. So send me a letter. If you're in jail or something, Robert, I'm pretty sure that we can probably get up some money for you, and put some money on your books. I'm not putting up your bail, dog. I'm sorry. Okay, but I'll probably donate 25, 30 cents to put on your book. Okay, so if you're in jail, Robert, I know what you can do. Befriend some pigeons and make them into carrier pigeons, and strap a note to their thigh and have them to come see me. I'm just kidding, Robert. Come on. But Robert's not in today, so we'll carry forward. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this, because every day before we do anything, we have to. It's kind of like paying homage to our ancestors, and I do that every day by doing Black Facts. So let's do that right now.
Dynamic Black Facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
I'm sorry, I keep laughing at this post, and I'm gonna bring it up, but not right now. But I keep laughing at the post, and I'm just saying, okay. So all right, let's do Black Facts. Meet the first Black electrical engineer who owned more than 60 patents. Granville Taylor Woods was the first African American to become a mechanical and electrical engineer. He was also an inventor who held more than 60 patents. Did y'all know that? Does that name sound familiar to you? It will here in a moment. Okay. Born on April 23rd, 1856 in Columbus, Ohio, to poor parents, his family could not initially afford to send him to college, but he was still able to develop the needed skills to become a machinist and blacksmith when he worked as an apprentice in a local machine shop. Later, he was able to attend college and studied mechanical and electrical engineering there. Upon graduation, he became an entrepreneur and worked as an electrical engineer and inventor. He started out working in Ohio, but in 1892, he moved his facilities to New York City. His work is credited for making public transportation systems throughout the United States safer and better. For example, he invented and patented tunnel construction for the electric railroad system. Another one of his notable inventions was an improved telephone transmitter that combined the telephone and the telegraph. He later sold the patents and the rights to this device to American Bell Telephone Company, which later was acquired by AT&T. He also invented the multiplex telegraph. Thomas Edison had been working on a similar invention and once tried to claim that he was the original creator of it. But when Edison took Woods to court over the matter, he was defeated and Woods was awarded the patent. Thomas Edison now, okay. Edison was not only the only one who tried to claim Woods' inventions of his own, so he often had difficulty enjoying his success. Sadly, he died on January 30th, 1910 in New York City. Today, few people talk about his contributions, and his legacy is hardly even mentioned in public textbooks. And that's our Black Fact for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black Facts, our culture, our history, our people on JourneyRadio.com.
By the way, you can find more of those Black Facts all over the internet, but here's one website I go to. It's pretty simple and easy to remember. It's called blackhistory.com. All right? So you've heard me talk and say that we should be teaching our children Black history every day in our homes. So here's a website for you parents, blackhistory.com. Go out to that website, and I read a lot of my Black Facts from this website. And you'd be stunned at what's out here on this site. Stuff that I didn't know. I know a lot of stuff that you all didn't know because I know y'all didn't know it because of how some of y'all spend your money. Okay? Think about that. Here's another fact. Black people founded the city of Los Angeles. If you ever look at that seal, the original seal, kind of looks like a black woman. Yes, there was a black passenger on the Titanic when it sank in 1912. No, he didn't survive. Meet the first black pilot to fly solo around the world. It took him 97 days. These are just a few black facts that's on this recipe, of what's on this website. Here's another one for you. And by the way, this is a great one right here. We've been hearing a lot about this. The recipe for Jack Daniel's whiskey was actually invented by a black man, a former slave. And I knew that as well. Now, check this out. I used to drink Jack. In fact, when I drink whiskey, don't get upset. Yeah, I drink. All right. No, I'm not an alcoholic. But when I drink whiskey, and y'all know I talk about tequila all the time. Hey, all right. But when I drink whiskey, in fact, the whiskey that I used to drink when I was a young cat was Jack Black. And that's what I called it, Jack Black. Jack Black with a twist of lemon. There you go. Jack Black on the rocks with a twist of lemon. That was my drink back in the day. So I knew this for a while. And then, of course, I had the pleasure of traveling to Lynchburg, Tennessee. Yeah, that's the name of it. With a very dear friend of mine. Ironically, I was talking to her this morning. And we went to the distillery. And the one thing about it, Jack Daniel's, the distillery, they don't hide the fact that the recipe was given to Jack Daniel's by an ex-slave. Okay, so that's one of the many black facts. Here's another one. A former slave invented a unique propeller for steamboats, but wasn't allowed to patent it. It goes on and on. So as I've told you over and over again, and because the reason I'm talking about this is because we're going to talk something that went on in the North Carolina school district here in just a moment that ought to upset all of you. And part of that is, the reason it went on is, number one, you're not teaching history to your children. Okay? And as I've said over and over again, in this day and time, there's no reason why you should not be teaching history. It's easy. Every day in your home, you ought to have a Black History moment. Every day. You ought to play a game. Every time your child brings you a Black History fact, give them a quarter. You say, well, that's not much. But see, they'll start bringing you so many Black History facts, them quarters will turn into dollars. You understand that, right? If you're a big spender, give them $1. Every day, have your son and daughter to bring you a Black History fact. You say, well, I shouldn't have to pay them for learning Black history. Yeah, you should. You know why? Because everything we do in this world is incentive based. You work, you get paid. So part of working to understand who you are, pay your children. Okay? And if you start paying them enough, start a business and write it off on your taxes. There you go. All right. So the reason I'm bringing that up is have you seen, and we're going to talk about police today as well, because I read another horrific story about police and what they did. And man, I'm telling you, man, not only is the police the problem, it's the prosecuting attorneys as well. I'm telling you, folks. So we're going to get into that story a little later on, but I want to first start off by reading a little bit or talking a little bit about this article that came across my wall last week. And I meant to talk about it last week, but sometimes I hold off on articles. Now, I didn't do this purposely, but I'm kind of glad I did, because it speaks to ignorance. Because these two stories took place in North Carolina. All right? But just because they took place in North Carolina does not mean that it's part of your state and your school system. All right? Because I've been saying for years that Black history ought to be part of the regular curriculum in schools. It should be part of the regular curriculum. It should not be set aside to only teach it during February. That's ridiculous. So let's say, for instance, if you are studying theory of heart transplants, why aren't you studying Dr. Daniel Hale Williams? If you're studying blood transfusion, why aren't you studying Dr. Charles Drew? If you are studying, because see, here's the thing, what we know now is that there were many black inventions that were created. And see, part of the problem with people who are racist, or let me just say this, some white folks are racist by ignorance. Would y'all agree with that? Because they've been taught in the same school system as your black children. And the same school system tells them that black people did not contribute anything to America. Now, we know that's a lie, but they fall prey to that ignorance just like your children does. Okay? So that's what I mean by some white people are racist through ignorance. So black history ought to be part of the regular curriculum. And whomever chooses textbooks, if there aren't pictures in those books of people of color, if there is not pictures in those books about the accomplishments of blacks that's woven into the textbooks, those books should not be chosen, but unfortunately they are. So let me read this story to you. The North Carolina School Board rejects required African American class in a controversial vote. Okay? In my opinion, African American history ought to be mandatory. If you're going to separate it in a separate class, everybody that goes through that school ought to take African American history. Okay? So students in North Carolina School District won't be required to take African American history course after a controversial decision. The Winston-Salem Forsyth County School Board of Education last Tuesday struck down a proposal to offer the mandatory class, according to the video of the meeting. The 7-1 vote came just before district leaders unanimously approved continuing the district's so-called infusion plan, which included the additional multicultural courses for the high schoolers. Okay, so you're saying, well, why am I reading that story? I'm going to tell you here in just a moment. This is why I'm reading this story. Now, this particular story happened in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Okay? This story happened in Kannapolis, North Carolina. Now, up until I saw this story, I had never heard of this city. Now, this is dated December the 11th. Today is the 11th. Okay? This is from their local television station, WSOC TV. I'm going to read a couple of questions for you on a homework assignment that's going to boggle your mind. Okay? They're doing fractions. This is a math. They say this was a social studies class. So this was a social studies class. So the question was asked as part of a lesson on the 3/5 compromise, which is a 1700 law that counted slaves less than white people. In other words, black people were 3/5 of a white man. So the homework assignment asked middle schoolers how many slaves would equal 4 white people. And so let me give you another question. How many slaves would you have if you equaled 2 2/5 whites? Here's another one. How many slaves would be needed to equal 9 white people in counting the population? How many slaves would you need to equal 2 white people in counting the population? How many slaves would you have if you equaled 1 4/5 whites? How many slaves would be needed to equal 4 white people? This was a homework assignment. Now, I know what some of you all may be saying is that, hey, what's wrong with that? There's a lot wrong with that. That's why I read that first story first. Is the state of North Carolina just last week voted not to include African American history as a mandatory course. Because when you talk about the 3/5 compromise, you have to understand its significance. Now, giving fractions, that's fine, but that should not be a homework assignment. In fact, the school district was so offended, and many of the parents were so offended, that they're not going to even take that as a grade, that particular assignment. According to school leaders, teachers and staff are in the process of performing racial equity training. They said the training started before the assignment, but the assignment shows more needs to be learned. Racial equity training? You know, number one, I'm tired of people. Look, I didn't have to go to training to know how to treat people. Let me say that again. I didn't have to be trained to know how to treat people with respect. Why do grown-ass people need to go to training to learn how to treat people with respect? That's inbred racism. Period. Let me ask you something. Are black people going to this training, or are just white people going to this training? And why should black teachers have to go to this training? I don't know if that is the case or not, but should black people have to go to racial sensitivity training? I'm just asking for a friend. But see, the problem I have with this, and the problem why racism continues to flourish in this country, number one, I said, is through ignorance. And the only way that you combat ignorance is you educate. And education begins at home, number one, but it also helps in school. I'm reminded of the two kids. I think both of them are about 5 or 6. They're two young boys, one black, one white. And the story I read on these two young men is that they have the same birthday. They are best of friends. In fact, they think they're twins. Now, wait a minute. The young black boy is black. He has black hair, has a beautiful smile. The young white boy is white. He has blonde hair and blue eyes. He looks like a white boy. The black boy looks like a black boy. And they are all smiles in the picture in the story that I read, with their arms around each other, and they call themselves twins. Now, I'm confused. How could that be possible? How could a white boy claim that he's twins with a black boy? Now, let me be clear. They have different parents. Now, we know the story of the two British girls that were actually born twins. One was born as a black girl, and the other was born as a white girl. That's a true story. But in this particular case, these kids are American. They didn't come into this world from the same womb. But my question to you, my friends, how is it that a black kid, 5 years old, and a white kid, 5 years old, are best of friends to the point where they think they are twins because they have the same birthday? How could that be possible? You know why it's possible? Because they have not been infected with racism. especially the white kid. You get that, right? Now, I gave you that example to prove a point to you, that racism is about ignorance. And the only way that you're going to combat racism is that you're going to have to combat ignorance. And you do that through your education system. You see, you should tell black kids and white kids that the reason that your father can get that open heart surgery is because of Dr. Daniel Hell Williams. The reason that your cousin who is on dialysis can have blood taken out of her body and put back into her body is because of a man who initially set up blood transfusion. That's Dr. Charles Drew. The reason that you have light is because there was a black man who created the filament and the telephone. You heard me read that in Black Facts. So if we really want to defeat racism, because I've said over and over again that my generation is lost. My generation is lost. They will go to their deaths, many of them with racist thoughts and tendencies. So the only way that we can solve the problem is through our children. Because see, you can get a black kid and a white kid playing together, and they will never know anything about race. I remember in the 8th grade, Chuck Tedder was one of my best friends. He's a white guy. They called us Salt and Pepper. We took classes together. We did the same things together. They called us Salt and Pepper. My best friend in college was a white guy, Richard Cook. My best friend when I went to Camp Grundy back when I was 7, 8, 9, and 10 years old, being the only black kid there. I had a lot of white friends until one of them called me a nigger. And I had never been called that before. In fact, I had heard it, but I didn't know what it meant until I went home and talked to my mother. And the day that, and I remember the kid's last name, Teeter, called me that, I remember my friend who rode the bus with me every day, my white friend who sat beside me, was angry at him. What I'm saying to you is one of the ways that we can combat racism, if you're really serious about combating racism, is to make sure that African American history is taught in every school, from kindergarten through high school. And it should be mandatory. It should be part of the regular curriculum. See, these are real world things. See, this stuff about simply saying that you are against racism without doing anything about racism makes no sense. We got to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Coming up here in just a moment after the break, we'll talk to Patrick Oliver on joynetradio.com.
The law offices of James. So you're looking for a place to exchange ideas and talk about the issues that affect our community? Then join me, David W. Coleman, and my co-host, Robert Webb, for Black Focus Radio every Monday through Friday, noon to 2 p.m. on joynetradio.com. We like to say, it's our issues, our solutions, our voices. Download the latest podcast on your favorite platform. Also catch us on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. That's Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Hello
if you want to
to
hear
All
mine.
Time at Marco's. Hello to being a game changer and original.
Education,
And to those who make
Black
it
history and
authentic,
education.
We say hello with the Founder Select
Yep.
Pizza, Old World pepperoni, sliced Italian sausage, mushrooms on dough made fresh every day, and a sauce from the original Gianmarco recipe. Hello to an
You say what? You left your books. Oh, do I get copies? Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry. But I'll bring them back.
Oh, okay.
I just got a one beat up copy, but I have a little care package of this one and then the one we did at Central High. This is the journal of the announcement.
Okay.
But I'll bring
Okay.
it back by here.
Okay, that's cool.
Education. Or miseducation. Which one?
It's basically miseducation. I'm talking about, North Carolina last week, they voted against requiring African American history to be taught in their schools, which I think that's the key to stopping racism. I've been saying that for years because many whites don't believe that blacks contributed anything to America. And that's a lot of racism is based on ignorance.
Ignorance. Yeah.
So yesterday a story came out in North Carolina about them sending home assignments.
Oh, God, I saw that.
Did you see that?
Pricing slavery.
Slaves, 3/5 slaves. How many slaves would be needed to equal 9 white people? Stuff like that. See, that's ignorance. That's a teacher being ignorant.
Teacher.
A teacher. You see what I'm saying? And it's just so ironic that you all just last week voted down African American history to be taught in schools. Okay?
And then what was it Nikki Haley said?
Uh,
She right there in North Carolina.
Right, but I talked about that a lot yesterday, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit today as well. See, Nikki Haley is not. She's a product of immigrant
Yes.
parents.
Yeah.
So she was never
She's
taught
not
that
Haley.
history.
Yeah, she's not a Haley.
Exactly.
She's
Her first name is Nimrata. It's not
Right.
Nikki. Okay, so it's ironic that she's the one that took down the Confederate flag in South Carolina, but really doesn't know what the meaning of it really is. That's just pure stupidity. It just really is. All right, here we go. And by the way, we are on Facebook Live and Twitter and all of those. All right, welcome back to the show, Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. I want to welcome a good friend of mine, Patrick Oliver, to the show. Of course, Patrick is big on literacy, and we were just kind of commenting in while we were getting set up about, this North Carolina thing. I remember fighting in Memphis. The state of Tennessee, at least the Memphis School District, it is mandatory that they teach Black history in the Memphis School District. I don't know if a lot of people know that. And in fact, it had been on the books for decades. And Black people in Memphis didn't know it until someone went to the Memphis room. Memphis has in their library a Memphis room. And it has some of the best history of Memphis, like Dr. Charles Church, who was the Black man who saved Memphis from the yellow fever epidemic. Tom Lee, that's what that park is named after, a Black man who patrolled the Mississippi River in a dinghy, picking up trash and selling it to try to make an end for his family, who ended up saving some upper crust white folks that was out on the river, and the paddle boat started sinking, and he saved them. And that's why Tom Lee Park is named after Tom Lee. Memphis is replete with all kinds of wonderful history. And you learn those things in the Memphis room, but now they mandated to be taught in his. My whole point is this, in bringing up that story in North Carolina, is that racism is based on ignorance. We know that now, okay? And I love the example of, if I take, some of us grew up in the country, and we had brown eggs.
Yes.
And when I moved to the city, there were white eggs.
Right, right.
But the irony is that when you'd crack them open, they'd still look the same. They taste the same.
Tastes the same. Yolk,
You know,
all of it.
I'm just saying. 855, talk closer to that mic, Patrick. 525-5683. Patrick Oliver's in studio with me. Patrick, why you harassing me and trying to get on my show, man?
Man, you got one of the best shows in the city, and ain't too many folks want to talk about the importance of. I shouldn't even use the word diversity in terms of black literature being in schools, like you're talking about today, Black history. So what I come to talk about today is the importance of our children seeing themselves in books and literature, and the importance of it. Not just our
Why
children.
is that important, though?
Yeah.
Why would that make a difference?
Well, we got to see ourselves as heroes. We definitely can't see ourselves as how we're depicted on television.
Exactly.
Because if we follow that model that's on television, I mean, we'll be twerking at the LA Forum.
Oh my God!
So
I didn't know who
watch
that person was. I thought it was just somebody in the stands. We're talking about Lizzo, by the way. I just learned her name.
Right.
But then I realized that this is some type of entertainer that your daughters want to model themselves after.
And she's a major entertainer. I mean, I was surprised that she actually did that. And some
Wow.
people said, hey, why are we policing women's body, blah, blah, blah. But I'm so glad to see so many prominent black women who are black womanists who are really, were really stunned by it.
Why are you offending me with your body?
Right. So it was very interesting. But one of the things was she has a new CD coming out that she's dropping this week. So obviously we need attention. So it was unfortunate that she
Well,
did
that
it.
old saying, bad publicity is good publicity. Unfortunately.
So, but back to my point is that we need for our young people to understand that there are so many images that they can find, like you said, just in the Memphis Museum along the history of Memphis that will keep their mind occupied until the day they die. It's so much history in one city. If we just look at the history in Little Rock, the black history, the black culture that's here in Little Rock, if we teach our children that, they will be busy for 12 years of school.
Yeah.
If we just teach them that. And the importance of that, back to your original question, why is that important? We have to see ourselves as more than relevant. People, will try to write you out of history, and would try to, make you seem as if you are not significant. That's the big deal with North Carolina.
Exactly.
They do not want us to, seem as significant. Well, how can a people not be significant if they gave the world technology, math, science? And I say technology, people are like, well, technology couldn't have come out of Africa because it's been so long ago. What's your definition of technology? Because for technology, for me is innovation.
Exactly.
And to build a pyramid, that's innovation, isn't it? So that's technology. So we saw technology way before anybody saw technology, and our children need to learn that they have that gift of being the world's original innovators. Create the original innovator hub. All these terms y'all using now, they came from the motherland.
Exactly.
So we are the original innovators, and our children must know that and have to know that, and our parents need to understand that. And like Dr. Amy Wilson always used to say, a lot of people do not want to teach you that because it makes them irrelevant.
Yep.
It puts you back in your rightful place as being the leader, as being the innovator. So why would somebody want to rush and teach you that? Because all of a sudden you change.
Right.
You may demand more. Because you may demand more money because you gave me this, you're this intelligent, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So it works to other people's disadvantage for us to acknowledge and celebrate our greatness.
That's part of the reason when I do my rites of passage camps, I base it on African history. Notice I said African history.
Exactly.
Okay, because we've been duped into believing that our history began in slavery.
Right.
No, those were not slaves. Those were kings and queens and doctors and architects and scientists who were stolen into slavery.
Teach.
You see what I'm saying? So, and let me give you a personal example because I know what you're saying is true because I did it to my children. Okay, Fred H. Crump. Do you know that name?
Crump, yes.
You know what he did? He took the nursery rhymes. He and his wife, as a matter of fact. You can't find those books
Not
anymore.
anymore.
And that's sad.
Intentional.
Oh, I know. But here's what I did. I refuse to buy my daughter white dolls. She would not get white dolls. All right?
Nothing wrong with that.
I refuse to buy, when they were growing up, all the books that we read had black images, like Fred H. Crump,
Right.
Jamaica and the Beanstalk.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And I tell this story all the time. There were so many of them. I've got them in storage somewhere. And what they were the nursery rhymes that they simply replaced white kids with black kids. And they changed the names. Okay? I forgot what the Hansel, and I can probably look it up. But my point is, and one other book that I bought for my daughter was called Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters.
Yes.
Okay? Classic book. And I bought that book, and he had 3 daughters. He was a king.
Yep.
And his daughters would always try to trick him into telling them which one was the prettiest. It's a great book.
That's a great book.
It's a great book. I tell that story because I truly believe, and my daughter, about 3 years ago, my daughter lives in Chicago. She was in, I believe she was in one of the bookstores. I forgot which one it was. And she called me, and I was about to go on the air, and she says, she was crying. And I said, baby girl, what's wrong with you? And she said, Dad, you'll never believe where I am. I said, does that make you cry? She says, well, I'm in a black bookstore. I said, well, why are you crying in a black bookstore? She says, I'm standing here looking at a book. And I said, really? She said, Mufaro's Beautiful Daughters.
Wow.
She said, I remember you reading this book to me, and it helped make me who I am today. So I'm saying that to tell you that I purposely did that. My daughter didn't get white dolls.
Right.
My son didn't get white characters. I did that. My son now is a captain in the Navy. He runs his unit. He is, and not to be bragging on my kids, but I'm simply saying, I know this works because I did it to my children, okay? He runs a unit that he's one grade lower than what he needs to be to run the unit.
Okay.
But they let him run the unit because of his leadership skills. So what I'm saying to you people out there, I'm not selling you anything that I have not done to my children. It works.
Right.
Instill black history in them, because what it does, Patrick, is that it creates a sense of pride and motivation in them that when I do my rites of passage, when we first met up again, we were in Philadelphia. We were at Dr. Doreen Lowry's, her black male symposium. And it was amazing how many of those young black males came up to me afterwards and said, Mr. David, I didn't know some of that stuff you were telling me, because they're not teaching it in school, man.
You can't teach what you don't know.
True.
And that's what's happening. If you think about some of the teachers that are teaching our children nowadays, if you look at some of the syllabus at some of these universities, you can go to any university in this country, particularly in this state, and look at what these teachers are encouraged to teach in classrooms, and how many of the books that you just mentioned, Mufaro's Beautiful Daughter, and other black books that are in their syllabus or in their curriculum. So they're not being prepared to teach our children. So they're going to teach what they know and what they've been taught. Like this woman in North Carolina, her parents or somebody in her family or her community or church she attends taught her that stupidity was somebody in that school. That's learned stupidity too. That's learned ignorance, intentional ignorance. It's institutionalized ignorance. We got to keep in mind too, racism is institutionalized.
Exactly.
It's white world supremacy. It does exist. It's a reason for doing it. And that's what's happening to many of our students in this country. And there's nothing to put any of our teachers down who some white teachers who do go into our classroom and try to teach our children. But you need to reprogram yourself to say, okay, I need to do what David just talked about. I need to go and look up all these books that some books he just mentioned. I need to find them. I need to go look at the Coretta Scott King awards. All those books that have won awards over the past 50 years, I need to include them in my curriculum. If I'm teaching a classroom that's 70-80% black, that's just if the dominant population in your classroom looks the same, you should focus your curriculum at that population. Common sense would tell you your class is going to do well if you focus on that area that has the biggest population.
Right.
So it means your classroom test scores would do better.
And it makes you a better teacher.
A better teacher. But if you focus on that narrow 5-10% of the population of students who's white, and you just all your curriculum is based on them, that small percentage is only that's going to pass.
And this is why I tell parents you need to get involved as well. Because when my daughter and my son would bring their syllabus home, I read their syllabus. And you know, your English syllabus, they always listed the books that they would have on there, and quite often there were no black authors.
None.
So I would pick up the phone and call the teacher.
I say, why?
I'd say, wait a minute. Why aren't there any black authors on this? And they would give you some where it's not listed on the school board book list or some crazy stuff.
Right.
And I would say, look, I don't care what's not listed. My daughter needs to have some black authors. Or when they had a book, these are the books that you can do book reports on. No, these are the books my kids are doing book reports on. Okay? That's how I did it. That was called getting involved in their education, which a lot of our black parents don't do. That's another story for another day. But what I'm simply saying is this, and this is why I love what you do, Patrick, is that if we are going to empower our children, and I'm going to read your quote that I got a lot of comments on. If we're going to empower our children, then we've got to get them to start reading. That's the bottom line on it. That is the door to opening up everything else. I had a math teacher and it was what they call it. It wasn't general math. It was Math 2, where they began to teach us algebra in 8th grade at Dunbar. And actually, he was our track coach as well. Munkern was his name. I can't remember Coach Munkern's last name. But here's the thing that he would do. When we would do math, he made us write the whole instructions. Okay? Wow. So if that instruction was a paragraph, the homework that you did, you had to write the paragraph, you had to write out the problem, and if you didn't, you immediately got a 0 on that paper.
That's a word.
Now, what that did to us, it made us read the problem. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's some deep stuff, brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We didn't realize that as 8th graders that, this is going to teach us some long-term stuff now.
Long-term skills.
Now, everything I do, I got friends now who will get instructions. I hate it when you get instructions, you don't read them. First thing I do is I read the damn instructions. Right. I just got a brand new iPad. You know what I did? Right. I went through and said, where's the instructions? Right. And I couldn't find instructions, so I jumped on YouTube before I even started trying to use it. You get that, right?
Right. You're conditioned to do it.
I'm conditioned to do it. And if you condition your children to follow a certain path, what is the old saying? Train up a child in the way he should go, and thus he or she will never depart. That's right. That's right. Anyway, let me.
Right.
So I get excited when you come to the Pat. You didn't come more often, man. You know, I'm just saying. But let me find that quote for you because I got so much because it was about reading, and people don't simply get that because, for whatever reasons, they don't understand the power of knowledge.
Yeah, but back to your point that you were making in terms of next steps, in terms of learning how to use innovation. You bought a tool of the future, the 21st century tool that many institutions around the world will be using to advance their companies. And you got to know how to use it properly. Most people think they can just pick up a iPad, a phone, and use it. And we do have some kids who are brilliant who can do it.
Yeah.
But it's a small amount.
Right.
But at some point in time, in your instruction, in using that tool for a company, there is going to be a manual to say, to make this iPad work for what we want it to work for, to move our bottom line up, this is what you need to do. And we need our kids to understand that every company you go work for will have an instructional manual of some type, work manual, quality assurance manual, technical requirements manual. So in order to be part of these companies, it's 2020. We might as well say it's 2020.
Yeah.
We're gonna be, and So now everything is much more advanced. More reading is required. People think because we have all this technology, less reading is required. No,
You need more.
you need more, because if you're going to be building and developing apps, that means there's different requirements. Then there's different laws. Somebody got to, understand those technical requirements. You got to have technical writers to be able to read those technical requirements. So it's more and more advanced. And no, it's not easy. It's really, people are celebrating the fact that they see less paperwork and documentation. They think that means less reading. It's no.
Yeah.
They've just made it more convenient for you to go find it elsewhere. Less paperwork. They're cutting their costs. But we still live in a world where more reading is required. All the work I'm doing now, everybody's still dumping a lot of paperwork and saying, "Hey, Patrick Oliver, if you want to work on this project, submit me a proposal." Well, I gotta write it that day.
Yep.
And that's what we're moving toward. Our kids need to understand these companies are now getting smaller, getting rid of office space, and saying work from home. But if you're gonna work from home, submit me a proposal and tell me how you're gonna do this from home.
The last 4 years that I worked for Dell, I worked from home.
Yes, that's what we are.
I would get up, start my coffee. If I had a phone conference, a video phone conference, I would put on a tie, and I'd probably be sitting in shorts. Because they'd only take the top of me. And I always tell the story of this guy who forgot that he was doing a phone conference, a video conference in his underwear. He gets up, and you saw everything. He ended up losing his job. But you're exactly right. This is where technology is going. And unfortunately for us, we are behind the curve, and we get offended when people like you, people like me, begin to tell them that, hey, you got to get involved with your children. You got to get involved with your children. You just can't dump your children off to an education system who has never wanted to educate your children in the first place. See, that's my argument here, is that we've got to get involved with our children and make sure that we are the microcosm of what this city teaches. So if we want our children to grow up as viable individuals, then we got to make sure that they're being taught properly. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah, taught properly to be prepared for, like you said, we talked about now, 21st century. You left Dell. It's been 10 years ago.
I've been gone from Dell about 6 years now.
6 years. 6 years ago.
By the way, I self-taught myself how to build computers.
So just 6 years ago, what you were talking about, the technology you're talking about, it's more advanced now.
It's gone. Let me tell you a secret. I'm glad you brought that up. When you get technology, do you realize that technology is old? People don't realize that when I was selling servers, networking, and storage for Dell, we had already gotten we were being trained on the next generation of server storage and the networking. You understand that? So when you get it in your home, companies are 6 to 18 months ahead of when you finally get that technology at home.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
What I'm saying to young people now, and it's almost,
that's crazy.
They don't believe it, but it's like, this is the technology. You say 6 years ago you were at home working. People still looking for jobs to go work for somebody. It's like, no, they want you to work from home. So I tell people now, you investing money in all these sneakers and all that, buy the most advanced laptop that you can buy, that you can afford. It's in your budget, because if you can spend $200-300 on a pair of sneakers, well, sir, you can go out there, David, and you probably know better than me. You probably can buy a used a Dell computer for $300 or $400.
You can buy a brand new Dell computer for $345. I know, because I looked at them.
So
the reason mine is about 3 years old, but I'm a computer technician. I can keep mine up.
Right.
But
so we need to be teaching our children. This is the level of literacy that we teaching our children. So when we talk about literacy and reading and writing, 'cause like you, I come out of somewhat the STEM area, worked in aerospace, Hughes, Northrop. So some of the things we saw years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we just not using it in terms of night goggles and using various technologies. So this is the literacies we are talking about for our children. Advanced reading so they can participate in the future. We're users of all of this stuff.
Yep.
We're users, but what about the builders of it? What about being the designers of it? Make the real money. I mean, the real money, outbuilding and things like that, so it's important.
All right, Patrick, let's talk a little bit. I have this is a meme that I published, but Facebook has blocked it.
What?
It's about, and the meme basically said black people don't read. And it goes into why we should be reading. But I just found it and clicked on it, and here's what it says.
Come on.
This content isn't available right now.
They blocked it.
It's been blocked. And I've heard that Facebook is blocking black issues.
So guess who's working at Facebook?
White folks.
Midwesterners,
Yeah.
Southerners.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's not on here anymore. And I can see the comments where a friend of mine, Greg Thomas, who was a former quarterback for the Razorbacks, who lives in Dallas now, he wrote truth on it. But the meme is not there. It's been shared twice. Anyway, all right, let's talk a little bit about why you're here, Patrick, of course. You're an author. I'm an author, and of course, I love authors. Of course, I'll be traveling to Dr. Milligan's Black Writers on Tour in March.
It's in March. Right?
It's the last weekend in March, so
You try to get out
you might want to try to get out there. We're trying to take a group of people there now. I'm kind of hesitant to say we're definitely going because I might have to have surgery in late February. So football injuries, that's causing me problems, but that's neither here nor there. But certainly you've got to get out there, Patrick. It is the best black right. I mean, I've told you before on the West
I know
Coast.
Dr. Milton, yeah.
And you know Dr. Rosie
Yeah,
too as well. So, but let's talk about your books. Tell. And I noticed that did you steal some of one of your titles? Did you kind of steal that from Black Focus Radio?
What title?
The one that says, what's the one? Our
Voices. Yeah, no, didn't steal it, but it there's a similarity.
I'm just expecting a check, brother.
okay,
I'm just
all right.
claiming a check. The residuals. So pick which one you want to talk about first.
I got the Announcing Journal here in studio with me, and it is a writing project for boys and young men.
Okay.
Somebody asked me this weekend why at the book release event we had in Dallas this weekend at the African American Museum. It's like, why do you always focus on boys? Why just with boys? It's like, hey, I'm a young man. I grew up as a young man. My father saw my father and grandfather being readers of books. But as I look back now, I just see young boys aspiring, being pushed to sports and athletics. I told somebody this weekend, I'm big on sports and athletics. I coached it, and
Well,
like,
I am, yeah.
Exactly. So we know sports and athletics represents teamwork, camaraderie. I mean, it does a lot of things for young people, and especially boys and girls as well. But when you talk to young brothers nowadays, they're overwhelmed with all the advertisements around sports and things like that. So if you talk to in elementary school, hey, they want to be the next Steph Curry, Ezekiel. I mean, that's their goal.
Yeah.
Number one goal. So but I'm trying to kind of change that and really get our boys to write more because going to work in these schools, elementary through high school, it's really dire. Dave. It's really I'm really concerned. I've never saw the literacy skills of children this bad. It's really, really bad when we're talking about writing. You ask a child to tell their story because we have to understand for our kids to get jobs, to get in college, you got to have some kind of narrative that you can share.
Yeah.
To get there, job, whatever it is, credit card or whatever. You got to be able to tell somebody who you are, that, these sorts of things. And I'm seeing kids in high school having a very difficult time with that.
Wow.
So I created this a Nazi writing journal where daily I'm going to post prompts on my Facebook group page, encouraging my sons to read. And the prompt could be a poem, it could be a quote from a famous person, could be excerpt from a short story. So it's going to be various types of prompts that I'm going to post on. And I'm going to ask young brothers, respond to the message, put that message they mean to you. I'm just asking for a paragraph.
Right.
I'm also got a section here, tell us about your day. I don't want them to write every day. And then the last part is, what keywords out of your day and out of the message of the day. Just give me, just identify 5 to 6 keywords. So our kids can understand, just and keywords is used a lot in social media. You know, as you well know, hashtags and things of that nature.
You use that to build websites.
Exactly.
And all that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get them to understand this is the 21st century. This is how language is being used. I tell young people all the time that you can get a job working for a Levi Strauss or a Nike or Mercedes-Benz or BMW, just tweeting every day. They hire social media people just to tweet every day. So if you are good with language, good with words, with 140 characters, people are selling $1 million houses just by, $10 million houses just by posting something on social media. So we got to teach our kids that the use of language, you learn how to use it, it can take you a long, long way.
So what you're saying is they shouldn't be on Facebook twerking and fronting with weapons and all that other stupidity. They should be utilizing those skills to become a better person as far as financially is concerned.
Because they have skills. Man, I look at some of the stuff these kids be posting, the videos, and how they've actually, you can tell some of the Instagram posts that I see is like how they use music and images. I mean, brother, it is brilliance. And it's like, how do we as a community tap into these young people and say, hey, don't use it that way. Use it this way to sell some service you may have to offer. If it's that service, you're just cutting lawns. Show yourself cutting lawns or cleaning a house or whatever you want to do. Use it for that purpose.
I interviewed a young brother who actually was from Ohio. I saw his picture on Facebook where he had made a wooden cart to carry his lawnmower.
I saw that, yeah. Brilliant.
Brilliant young man.
So this is kind of kind of talent that we have in our community. Oftentimes people want to tear down young people in our community with a little bit of nurturing, a little bit of conversation, a little bit, a lot of them are knuckleheads and hardheads, just like we were.
Yeah, we were.
But at the same time, we need to recognize what you were talking about earlier. The educational system is not giving them the real information they need so they can understand this is the real world out here. Yeah. What they're being taught is they're not preparing a lot of our children for the real world. I worked in the school system last year for a whole year. Worked at an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. Brother, it is sad, sad, sad. And
man, I hate you saying that.
Back to your point earlier, parents, you got to check your kids out. I know they're coming home with these standardized test scores saying they're A students, but ask your child, go home and read something to them, or have them read something to you, and then write down what they read. And then you will find out where your child is.
That's called reading with comprehension.
Reading with comprehension. Or ask your child to write you a proposal, what they want for their birthday next year.
That's great.
Have them just write that down.
Or what they want for Christmas.
What they want for Christmas. Write it down, in terms of a paragraph. Yeah. But but we're moving to a generation where time now where testing is big money. So a lot of schools are buying tests, so they're measuring our kids based on tests.
And that's not teaching them anything.
That's not teaching them, not real world, not in terms of the world we're talking about. When you work from home, there were technical documents you had to review and respond to. What they're learning in school, these children are not learning how to respond to technical documents that are being used in major corporations around the country. And as we think about it, we got companies like Amazon and Microsoft and Google. They have technical documents they're using all the time.
Yep. Hey, we got to take a break. You going to hang around for a little bit?
Hang around as long as you let me in.
Okay, man. Fantastic. We'll come back. In the break, I'm going to show you the picture of the one book. Patrick, he knows better. He should have brought me some books, man. But he's going to hook a black man up.
Bring him back.
Okay. And we'll be back in a moment. We've got the great Patrick Oliver in studio with us today. We're going to talk a little bit more about this journal. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I do want to expound on what you talked about as far as women saying, why are you only dealing with black boys? I'm going to tell you my story of how they did me that way. You got to be careful. And we'll talk about that, okay? Okay. We're Black Focus Radio, our issues, our solutions, our voices, right here on Joint Radio. Patrick Oliver. If you don't know this cat, you need to know him. He's a great brother, man. And by the way, I am jealous of you. You got to hang out with Haki Matabuti and Third World Press.
God is good.
I know that's right. We'll be back in a moment. Yeah, I love me some hockey mata booty, man.
Did y'all work it out?
I never was able to get him on.
What happened?
They never followed up with me.
How many people have come up to you and said,
So I am. We are getting more guests on now. Show has really just blown up. It really has. I mean, we're just for those 2 hours, we're averaging about 50 to 60 listeners that we can track on our software, and that's pretty huge. And they stay for the whole show. So typically, people will listen to a show for 15, 20 minutes. But they're staying. They're listening to the whole show. And we got, right now I'm looking, we've got people from Ann Arbor, Meeker, Oklahoma, Los Angeles, Colorado, Germany. It's crazy, man. You know.
People want good content nowadays. They want
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, even if you watch Al Sharpton's show, I'm just like, Al,
40568. We are here.
you're repeating what the shows, the 3 shows before you said.
Yeah.
It's nothing new. Particularly,
Yeah.
and Al's not a journalist. Al Sharpton's
No,
not a
he isn't.
journalist. He's terrible.
And boy, I remember when that show first came on.
It was a laughing stock.
Oh, Lord. I mean, you know, I've been in this business for 35
I
years.
know what I'm saying.
And I would just, and I would try to look at it because it was, you know, that's why they moved him to Saturdays. Because, you know, he used to be on every evening.
He was so bad.
And it was just terrible, man. I said, man, they could have found somebody better to do that show.
All these people out here been out here for all these years. You know, I mean, come on. You know,
Yeah.
In every major city, there's a major journalist who deserves their job.
Exactly.
Al Sharpton. You
Exactly.
Think about it. You know, just in D.C. alone.
I know.
You know,
I know.
You got, you know, come on. All these major journalists. I mean, it's a disgrace, man. But just to see some of the young people that they have doing what they call it when they're on site. Just some of them, man. They're better than Al Sharpton.
Oh, yeah, that they're doing, I mean, you look at what they've done on the Breakfast Club, they've come a long way. You know, I used to wouldn't watch that show because it was just so, for lack of a better term, it was just so ghetto. But they've come a long way because apparently somebody got to them and said, hey, look, if you're going to do this show, you need to do it right. Exactly. So I applaud them. They've come a long way. Man, he can't even read a teleprompter, man. I don't even watch the show anymore now because I'm an information junkie. Okay, so here's a plug down there if you want to use this. Right here.
Yeah, but I know never saw anybody as much as he does use the word I. You know, me and we, but mostly I. When I decided to do, you know, just like Al.
That's him.
Every issue comes up, you somehow you were involved in making it happen.
Yeah, that's him. All right, welcome back to the show, Black Focus Radio. You can call us up if you want to talk to Patrick, 855-525-5683, if you want to talk to him. But either way, Patrick and I will talk the rest of the hour. It don't matter to us.
We'll talk.
You know,
we
so
got a lot to catch up on.
Because I hadn't seen you in a minute, man. You know, so Dallas treated you nice.
Dallas treated me good. You know, interesting. So it's a major metropolis.
Yeah.
Top cities in the United States. I mean,
Yeah.
You know, in terms of dollars, money. You know, just it's the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of mega churches there. I'm overwhelmed by that. I ain't never saw that many mega churches in my life.
It's a lot
and black mega churches. You know, it's like wow, I know black folks had that many mega churches.
Oh yeah.
So it's a lot of money in Dallas. So they got a big pool to pull from. A lot, you know, because you got Southwest Airlines national headquarters. You got American Airlines and other major companies with Texas Instruments. I think so. You got all these major corporations. Several major corporations are there in Dallas. So a lot of black folks there are gainfully employed. You know, so we're talking about a lot of money these churches can pull from.
Yeah.
You know, so they got a big pool of money to pull from.
And if we could only change that mentality and make sure that a lot of those black folks who's making that good money will spend that money with other black folks, that would be great. Patrick Oliver's in with us today. We're talking about a couple of his two new books, and of course, we're talking about issues as it relates to our community. You talked about something, and I want to go back to last hour about people confronting you about why you only do that for black boys. Let me tell you my story. Of course, you know I do rites of passage camps.
Yes.
And when I did my first rites of passage camp in Memphis, we had done 2. And I began to get pushback from black women saying, hey, why don't you do this for black girls? And I said at the time that part of the reason that I don't do it for black girls is because our black boys are in more need. Okay? That has not changed as far as I'm concerned. Now, ultimately, what I ended up doing was adding a female component. The name of my organization was ROPQ, ROPQ, Rites of Passage and Queenship. So we did add a female component. In retrospect, although the female component worked great, we didn't have any issues at all. I wish I would have just held my guns and said, hey, I'm only going to focus on black males. Because if you look around, black women are the most degreed of any minority in this country.
Yes.
Okay? So black women are not having problems academically. Now, I'm not saying all, but the majority of them are not, based on that statistic I just gave you.
They're doing well.
You know, I remember the girl that I wanted to date in high school, in junior high, she made straight A's. I was making C's and D's. She told me that the only way that I can date her is that I've got to bring my grades up because, and I tell this story when I do my Right Passage camp. And she said because her daddy had told her that little black girls ought to be smart. And man, I've heard that so much. So what I'm saying in making that statement is that hold to your guns about focusing on black males. It's not that you don't want to help black girls. I help black girls also. But our black males are in so dire need. And you all don't understand it because maybe you don't work out in this community the way you do, Patrick, and the way I do. Our black males, sometimes you just like, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? So hold to your guns on that. And one other quick point. I'm of the argument, of course, you know, I played football, went to college on a football scholarship, ended up breaking my neck. Fortunately for me, I had academics. Yes. I'm smart. Yes. Okay. I wonder often where I would be had I not had some smarts. Right. I look at some of my friends who didn't have those smarts. I know where they are. Some of them are pushing up daisies. Some of them are crackheads. Some of them are alcoholics. So stick to your guns about black males. It is so important. It is incumbent upon us as black males to make sure that our black males are growing, are learning, and we've got to continue to push things like you're doing with the book that you're doing.
And that's an excellent point, David, because that's the reason for the Anansi Journal. If we think about when black boys wake up in the morning, if you're a teenage boy, you like music, like most of us. Mm-hmm. What kind of music are black boys hearing at 7 a.m. in the morning? What are the messages coming through the airwaves that they may be listening on local radio or they're on YouTube?
Or through their devices now. Because some of them are going to sleep with the music on, which I don't advise because you can get electrocuted.
Exactly.
But some of them are going to sleep, and although you're asleep, that music is still infecting your subconscious.
It's still there. So think about the narratives that are in that music. I encourage parents to go look at the Billboard top 10 songs that are out now and print the radio version of those lyrics. And think about what our boys are hearing the first thing in the morning. This is their mental breakfast in the morning. This is what they're hearing in the morning. So what narrative is that? What is that narrative they're listening to in the morning saying about them personally, about black boys? You know, what image are they selling to black boys who you're supposed to be? So we sometimes we don't understand why black boys come to school with this interesting bravado they do. Right. But that's what they're hearing in the morning. What is their depiction of women that's in this music they're listening to? Think about it. You know, the songs that they're hearing about black women and, you know, what they're thinking about black women. So this is what our boys are being fed every day without any level of balance. So that's what I'm trying to do with the Anansi Journal. At least give them a charge, to say, hey, Patrick, I posted a message for you today. Go to the website, check it out. You may not like it, but hey, at least go through this one little simple activity, so somebody can at least say to them for a few minutes a day. Hey, a quote. I'm gonna ask people like yourself to post on the page. Hey, do me a favor. Go to my Facebook page and post a message for the day.
Oh, great. Let me know. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
It's gonna be brothers like yourself. I'm not gonna go through history and pull up all historical messages. I want people like yourself to go on my Facebook page and post a message. I'm gonna give you a day to post it, and you post a message that you want kids to give you feedback on. It could be a quote. It could be a lesson you learned.
I've got like 10 right now. I'm like, oh yeah. So that's great, Patrick.
So they can respond. They can respond to that. That's what we want. We want. Yes, I'm gonna pull some stuff from Malcolm X and James Bond, people like that. But I also want them to pull message from people like yourself, just in case a kid want to say, well, I don't really understand what he said. Let me email him, and ask him what he meant. Or they find out who you are, they may start listening to your radio
exactly.
show. So that sort of thing. So I want young people to be able to take empowerment messages coming from men in the community, and I may have a few women in there as well, but primarily men, because it is a project focused for young brothers, but for at least once a day, give them some food, because they are overwhelmed, like you said. YouTube, the radio, there's so many channels, hundreds, that they're receiving derogatory and negative information about themselves, their community, and who they are. I mean, if you just listen to this stuff all day long, you're like, oh my God, this is what our children are listening to?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing celebrating their beauty, their brilliance, things that we were talking about. And that's what our children need if we're going to be a force in the future. Because we are a force right now. We're just not realizing the formidable force that we can be. Because everybody knows the brilliance of who we are. We look around and look at, look, it used to be where the premier position in football, because it's supposed to be for intellectuals, was the quarterback position. Who is dominating that position now?
Yeah.
We always were intellectual. It was just we would never put in that position to play the position.
Top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL today are black.
Top 5.
I just talked about that on my show last week.
Top 5. So
top 5.
And they said that's supposed to be the position for brain. The point guard position in the NBA. Who's supposed to be? He's a coach on the floor.
Exactly.
And I can't name a white starting point guard right now, top of my head. There may be one or two.
There's probably one or two, but off the top of my head, I can't name one either.
But the top, the brilliance is there in us. It's just got to be nurtured, and everybody has to understand. Sometimes we play too much on the negative statistics associated with it. We ride it too much. And then we also talk about, too oftentimes for me, in a lot of cases, the role of white supremacy, how powerful it is. But sometimes we give it too much credit.
Right.
So sometimes we have to be careful about let's look at the greatness that's happening in our community.
Or how you can defeat white supremacy.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're doing it.
Right. And you defeat it by defeating their ignorance. You see what I'm saying? You defeat it through knowledge. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So we're really doing it. The fact that I'm in this studio.
Black owned, by the way.
Black owned.
Yeah.
In Little Rock, Arkansas.
Exactly.
People would not think that last week people were shocked that we were in Dallas at the African American Museum, built by brothers of former librarians. Not built, but created with that vision. Beautiful museum, not funded like the Mosaic Temple is funded, which is a black innovation.
Right.
But we went down, and I told young people that were there, and the parents were there. Let's acknowledge Dr. Harry Robinson, who brought this museum. His idea started in the basement of an HBCU library.
Wow.
And now it's on the state fairgrounds in Dallas, Texas. A beautiful, beautiful facility. So we just got to, again, celebrate that greatness and share with our boys on a continual basis, because, like you said, David, great point you brought up about how young girls are exceeding in the sciences, in the professional world, because we had a black psychiatrist Dr. Gilbert Parks, who was on our panel this past weekend when I did the book release, and he brought that point up, the very point you just brought up. All the medical schools around the country, if you look at who's graduating,
Yeah.
black girls.
Everywhere,
Well,
and that's
let's say young women.
and you know when I did my Queenship portion, what I would
95%, he says. It was something crazy.
oh, I know.
It was in the 90s.
I know,
I'm like,
and black
huh?
males are down like 48%. I believe that's the right
I'm
number.
like, is that big of a difference?
It's that huge of a difference. So when you hear these sisters saying, I can't find an eligible black male, you know, that's true and to some extent, simply because on an intellectual plane,
Right.
there are a lot of, look, if all you can talk about is, to a sister these days, all you can talk about is sex, music, and food,
Sports.
and sports,
She ain't got time for it.
she ain't got time for you. Don't complain that she's pushing up on a white guy because you're not intellectually ready.
Or she's traveling somewhere. You can't catch up with her because she's always traveling.
Exactly, and you mad because she ain't paying attention to you. You ought to be proud of her. You see, I have a good friend of mine, Jackie Thomas, who is in North Carolina, ironically. She has put together a STEM program just for girls. It's called Girls Perfecting Science. And she only focuses on girls. And she asked me, she said, what do you think about it? And she said, Dave, I've known you a long time. Very dear friend of mine that I met in Memphis was there for me when I had some very serious things going on in my divorce. She said, I know what you're going to say, Dave. And because she was one of the people who were behind me with the Rites of Passage programs, she said, but I just want to focus on girls. And I said, Jackie, there's really nothing wrong with that. I said, but if I did that program, I would have to focus on boys simply because boys need it the most. And the funny thing about it, boys, and here's what I do with basketball players. I said, did you know you use science? All the time when you shoot that basketball. Do you realize that you are basically shooting a parabola? Some of them don't even know that you can put two official basketballs, line them up side by side, and they are designed to go through that goal together at the same time. You playing that game? Part of the reason, I wasn't the fastest guy, Patrick, but you know I used geometry when I chased people down. I plotted in my mind where they might end up, and I ran to that spot.
Yep.
That's geometry.
Yeah, not chase behind them, but
Exactly. That's geometry.
That's geometry.
A lot of our young boys, and here's the other thing that I do. Now when I see a big guy, tall black guy, I don't say, man, you look like a basketball player. I don't do that anymore. I said, man, you look like a scientist.
exactly.
Dude, you look like a lawyer.
Right.
Dude, I never bring athletics into the conversation
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Because we have to start training the minds of our young people to change their mentality as to look, the only thing I hate to use him as an example because he's turned out to be such a piss poor example. But Ben Carson is a classic example of that, who grew up in the projects. Okay? Unfortunately, the way he's turned out is sad, but I used to use Ben Carson as an
We
example.
all did. Because
You
he
see-
is. I mean, he technically he is.
He was a great example.
I mean,
You know, his politics aside, don't tell me because you grew up in the projects, when you don't have anything to eat, you can't make something out of yourselves. Because although I didn't grow up in the projects, all my damn friends were in the projects. So guess what? If my friends are in the projects, guess what I was? In the projects. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's not matter how you start the race, it's how you finish it.
how you finish it.
How you won that race. And we've got to start telling black boys that you can do more than just be an athlete. Look, you know me, Patrick, I love sports.
Both of us.
I love it.
Both of us.
I've made a living. Look, in Nashville for that's where I did sports radio. That was my first real daytime job where I did morning drive. That's when I had arrived. But you know what? I spent most of my time trying to educate young black boys about how to get through this life.
That's right.
And when they say, and we do that same thing too, where what you want to be, and the first thing they say, oh, I want to be a football player. First thing I'd say is, do you have a plan B? I said, what happens if you break your leg? And then, because, see, I'm a witness, I tell them about the 8 titanium screws that I have in my neck. I tell them how I broke my neck and walked around for years not knowing I had a broken neck because I was too busy trying to prove to my coach that I could play,
That you was ready.
that I was ready, okay? So, but because I had academics behind me, thanks to, and I'm going to call her name, Julia Hall, Thanks to her who said, my daddy ain't going to like you because you making C's and D's. That next 9 weeks, I made 5 A's and a B.
Okay. It's called incentive.
You know what I'm saying? But when I talk to young girls, when I did the queenship, this is what I told them. I said, you are in a unique position. Is that the bar that you set, young men will step up to that. Okay? And the men will say, well, what do you mean, Mr. Coleman? Here's the deal. Black men pursue black women. So if you black woman says that I need a smart black man, guess what? That boy is going to work hard to get them grades. That's all you got to do. In other words, sisters, if you set the bar on what you want your black man to be, black men will step up to that. They'll step up to that. But right now, the bar that many sisters have now is, hey, long as you can bring me money, long as you can twerk, long as you can do this, long as you can smoke weed, long as you can play loud music, that's the bar you're setting. So you're getting young men who are not even aspiring to be anything else but a rapper.
It's conditioning too on their part.
It really is.
Not just young boys who are listening to pop radio every day, but young girls are
yes,
listening
they are.
to it too. So their ideas in a lot of cases is being impacted.
Dude, I drove up to a sister one day, didn't realize it was a sister. She had the box bumping, and it was BH, N-word, kiss my, eat my sodo, all this other stuff. And when I pulled up beside her, I'm thinking it's a guy. I looked over, it's a sister.
Yeah. So
and I'm saying to myself, wow, I wonder what kind of men you dealing with.
Yeah. No, it's really damaging. Really damaging. We have a lot to deal with, a lot to break down in our community. It's hard work, but we can do it.
Yeah.
Me and you, we've been doing this work a long time. Mm-hmm. Obviously, optimism is what keeps us in the game.
Yeah.
Because if we look at all the negatives that we've had to deal with, we would have got out this. We'd have been gone.
I've cried a many night.
We'd be back in corporate America. People ask me, my family is so mad at me that I'm not back in corporate America.
Mine too.
Because they just know where I would be financially and other places. Like, dude, why are you out here,
hustling, struggling.
As opposed to being in corporate America as somebody's contract administrator in the aerospace industry. But I don't want to go back to you go back to that life, because it's something bigger. I see
you have a calling on you. You have to follow that calling.
You have to follow that calling. I went back to work for companies, and it was like
I was miserable at Dell. I was miserable, dude. I was making good money.
I was young. I lived in Southern California. Condominium, you name it. I had sunny California.
Traveling whatever I wanted.
Man.
Look, because when I met you in Philly, what happened? That's been almost 20 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah, about 15 years.
Yeah, about 15, 20 years. So when I met you in Philly, that's what I was doing. I was going around and like what Dr. Lowry said, she said, well, I can't pay you. And all I said was, well, Doc, if you can just put me up.
My company will pay for it.
I said I'll pay for it.
Right.
And I paid for it. Had a ball.
Yeah.
And went back multiple times. But the point is, that was the beginning of me saying that I got to follow my calling.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Man, we can talk all day. Let's talk. By the way, where'd you get the name of the book from?
The Nazi journal, Nancy the Spider.
Okay.
Many people may know about Nancy the Spider.
Mm-hmm.
These different African folktale.
That's why I brought it up, because I wanted.
Yeah, because I want folks to look it up now, because it's about creativity, it's about wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go and read about it, Nancy, you'll learn about again some African folktale. Wonderful, wonderful story. And the symbol on here is it's the spider web. It's the Adinkra symbol, spider web. So people say, well, Patrick, for young people, you need something more hip, more dynamic. But back to your point about rites of passage, for me, this is a rites of passage as well. Symbols mean something.
Right.
If symbols didn't mean anything, Nike wouldn't have its swoosh.
Exactly.
Exactly. Mercedes would not have its symbol. BMW would not have its symbol. So symbols do mean something, and we have to recognize those symbols that's part of our culture. So that's why I put this symbol on this cover. This is again the Dinko and Nancy symbol. So that so it's important. So tying all that in, because this is important. Dave, as African folktale, African proverbs, because this is another show. But most wisdom texts religious texts all come from African folklore,
Look out.
folk tales,
Look out.
Egyptian mysteries.
The Egyptian mystery system.
Everything, any spiritual text or wisdom text comes from our people. So it's important that we find a way to get our children back to understanding that. So this is kind of my rites of passage. So it's a literary rites of passage. So I'm taking our children back.
I think it's a great idea.
To understanding that we gave a lot to the literary world, not just the new spoken word and Langston Hughes and Richard Wright. No, it's prior to that. Language meant a lot to us. Words, symbols, it all meant a lot to us, and we got to reclaim that. There's no way no child in our community should be functional illiterate. It's a travesty. It's just a gross disappointment, and we should start back in there. I remember you mentioned a young lady told you that she's not going to date you if you're not going to have the grades. Look, as friends coming up, we used to tease our partners, man. What's up, bro? You can't read?
Exactly.
You know, we be hanging out with each other, and we start reading something, and someone in the group can't read. We like, dude, why you can't read, man? What's up? You know, in many cases, it wasn't because they had dyslexia or some kind of reading problem. It was just they didn't do their work. They didn't read.
Exactly.
So we tease them so much, they started going to class.
Learning. Yep.
You know, stuff. I mean, I remember that specifically growing up in elementary school, going to Carver and going to Booker. We teasing our friends like, dude, come on, man. We can't be hanging with us. And then the other part was, when we got our grades, we used to show each other.
Oh, yeah. And brag about it.
Yeah. What you make, man? I made all A's. I made all B's. You know, oh, man, I got a C, man. Damn. You know, I mean, we actually did that growing up. And we were coming from the projects and stuff, brother.
Yeah.
So we were comparing grades with each other, but we had black teachers back then, too.
Yeah, we did.
You know, black educators, you know. And people are shocked that I tell my nieces and them, I was in the Boy Scouts. Even though I grew up in the housing project, that was the Salvation Army Center around the corner from us, but they had a Boy Scout troop.
I was in Troop 450.
So, we was down the East End, and went camping in Ferndale, all that stuff. We did all that growing up. So I'm looking at kids nowadays, they inside all day on video games. Man, we rode bicycles from the East End housing projects, to the South End, West End, and back in the heat of the summer.
Yep. Dead. 12 o'clock.
You know, so being boys, being adventurous, but you can't. And that was a rites of passage.
Yeah.
You know, going outside of your neighborhood.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me trip you down.
It's more dangerous nowadays, but.
How many times did you go to your local Kroger's or your Safeway back then?
Safeway.
And you couldn't find a buggy.
Exactly.
You know why you couldn't find a buggy?
We had all the wheels.
We had all the wheels. We had go-karts. And man, don't let us ride by a house that they building. Oh man, that wood is gone. Cause
I got scratches I can show you now from going down a big hill on State Street with a go-kart, and the only thing I had was rope.
With the rope to guide it, and your feet that was the steering wheel. Man, people
but no brakes though.
Exactly. It was. We would take a stick and nail it to the side, and we pull it down, but it would break.
I learned it after my arms got scarred up.
But yeah, it's amazing. Let's and you brought up something, and I posted this the other day because a lot of people don't understand, and people think when I talk about religion that I'm trying to down them. What I'm simply trying to do is educate them, because you have to know the history in order to really and truly understand it.
Right.
So I posted this the other day. The myth of Asia, or Osiris, was the earliest recorded story of a god man who was symbolically crucified, resurrected from the death, and reigned eternally in heaven. The people of the Nile Valley believed that if they lived righteously in harmony with the teachings of Azure, they would inherit eternal life. In the Nile Valley, he became a powerful symbol and was associated with the physical and the spiritual rebirth of man. Later, Azure was associated with the essential element of nature, which represented the physical rebirth of vegetation. This concept of the resurrected Christ was the prototype for the numerous religious beliefs which later surfaced throughout the world. Now, this was 10,000 years before
Yes.
Christianity came into being.
Yes.
That's knowledge.
Osiris, yeah.
You see, I'm not trying to down your faith. I'm just trying to educate you. You see, that doesn't mean you can't be a Christian.
Right.
That doesn't mean you can't be a Muslim.
Right.
You know, but what you need to do is know what the origin is. And I quite often tell white people, man, I'm not going to argue with you. You're my child.
Right.
You came from us. We didn't come from you. You see what I'm saying?
Listen and learn, yeah.
Let's talk about your other book.
The other book, I don't have a copy with me, but it's called Our Voices, Our Stories, Our Visions.
Oh, by the way, before I do that, where can they get these books, by the way? Because we want to make sure that they are buying those books, because I know a lot of parents definitely is going to want the other one.
Yeah, www.speakloudly.com, or you can go by Pyramid Art and Books.
Okay.
Art Gallery Books. Then we'll have some of the books also at Little Rock Central High School
Great.
National Historic Site. And obviously, you can go to my website, www.speakloudly.com. And we got a lot of different events coming up in Little Rock. They would definitely want you to be a part of it. You know, we actually go do panel discussions around the journaling book, like we did in Dallas this past weekend. We had a Tell Your Story panel. So one of the things that I want one of the panelists to be able to talk about is this whole thing around sports. Looking at the numbers. How many kids around the country that participate in high school sports, college sports, and then to make it to become professional. We need to, for our boys to understand it, and our parents to understand that.
Right.
Because the amount of money that our parents are spending now for their kids who are just playing, well, in elementary sports.
I know.
They're spending $500 up to $1,000
Yeah.
for the uniform, cleats, trips, and all the stuff that kids are going on. But it's like you won't spend that money for your kids to go to a robotics camp.
Wow, that's deep.
You know.
That's deep. And it's funny you bring it
can't
up.
Find time.
It's funny you bring it up because, see, my next book is called Mind Jacked, and it's about two black kids who actually, they go to a robotics camp.
See, so, and the thing is, those camps are right here in our city. Many
Yes,
of
they
them
are.
free.
Yes, they are.
Or if the kids go there, they have an admission. They do scholarships for kids who are at certain economic levels. So but again, we're not enrolling our kids in that. We're saying, well, he said he liked football, he liked basketball, but he get A's and B's in school. Tap into that.
I would have parents who would say, and that's why I started having my rites of passage camps it would be like either during a spring break, and then I had to stop that because they were sending their kids off to basketball and football camp. And they said, well, my kids got to go to football camp. And I would say, well, I understand that. I said, by the way, I'm an ex-football player. I said, but the information that we're going to give him this weekend in rites of passage is going to far surpass what he's going to learn at a football camp. But a lot of parents, because they live vicariously through their children, they think that, oh, I couldn't make it, so I'm going to make my son this, that, and other. That's great, but you got to understand that less than 2% of all the people who play football, and I've got statistics to back it up,
Yes.
that's about how many get to the pros.
I'm telling you.
So you got to have a plan B. And my thing is you got to have a plan A through Z.
Yeah, and even just to get in, college, I tell parents, if you're going to let him play sports, at least let him get a full 4-year ride out of that sports. If you're going to invest that kind of money and time,
Right.
Let him, if he's going to pursue it. But it's like we have to get something out of the time that our children are playing games.
Exactly.
Because if you think about the amount of time we let our kids come home every day, and they leave school and they come home and they go in their rooms, they're playing
PlayStation 4.
PlayStation 4.
Xbox.
Fortnite, all these games they're playing for 5 hours.
Have you ever thought about how when you push that button and those men move on that screen, have you ever thought about why that works?
Exactly.
That's what we ought to be instilling in our children.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, play it, but then how do you build it?
Exactly.
My thing was growing up, I used to build model planes. Model planes and ships. I was fascinated with the Navy for some reason. So I would build aircraft carriers and planes and stuff like that. But then too, we grew up in a different time. I read a lot. I remember in the 7th grade, I had already read the trilogy for J.R.R. Tolkien like 3 times in the 7th grade.
Yeah, you admit it was mystical. It was adventurous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and I heard a mother tell when the movie came out, I heard a black mother tell her son, "I don't want you watching that movie. That's devil stuff." And I'm like,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah, we're seeing that now. Yeah, just Yeah, the magical, and people, back to your point, you read something earlier about Osiris. We need to understand that mystical and magic is part of our culture.
It sure
African
is.
culture, you know, if you study, we are magical people.
Yeah.
We can create, and that's what everybody understands about us as rappers. You know, we're the original storytellers. We have the power to recreate through our voice.
The griots.
The griots. We can create through voice. That's what that means. That's what nomo means. The procreative power of the word. So we gotta watch what we say because we are magical people. That's part of our history. Nomo, look it up. Malefi Asante talks about it. How what you say can manifest itself. Just like as a man thinketh,
So is he.
but as a man speaketh, so is he
So
as
is
well.
he, yeah.
So we need to understand that as we're allowing this language to come to our community, we need to watch it. So we need to start speaking positivity into our community because everybody knows that that's why the world allows us to speak this negative language
Yeah.
over the airwaves to us because they know the black power of language, of speaking. They know it. Everybody knows it. All the scientists, everybody studied it
Yeah.
except for us.
Yeah.
We think it's, oh, that's that old witchcraft stuff. No.
Yeah.
What you say is powerful. That's what I be around some people. They wonder when they say something to me that's negative, I do this. So you can go right past
Yeah.
me. I lean to the side because I don't want that energy to come into my body
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
it's real, man. And the people you hang around, you know, both of us, we got limited friends.
Yeah. Very limited.
Very limited because most people what we were talking about don't want to hear that. It's like, no, man, I don't want to hear that, man. So all y'all talking about that old black stuff. You know what?
So you mean that black stuff? You?
Right,
That
exactly,
we talking about you?
Exactly. You
Yeah.
know, y'all mad? What y'all so mad about all the time? We're not mad. We're just talking about what's happening today.
Exactly.
We just, you know, maybe our third eye is open.
Right.
You know, so we have to.
I don't get mad. It makes me powerful.
Powerful.
That's not anger. That's power.
And you're sharing it with others, you know, particularly the members of our family. So we're in a very difficult time, and that's why I'm really pushing the work that we're pushing, that Our Voices Anthology. It's a collection of writing from some students at Hall High that I worked with last year. You know, their voices, their story. They were primarily Hispanic kids. Fortunately, it turned out to be, you know, primarily Hispanic kids who wanted to be in my class because they finally found a way to. They enjoyed the writing process because they want to learn English. You know, so a guy named Patrick Oliver showed up. They Googled me and like, ooh, you know, he kind of cool. Yeah, let's stay in this class. You know, so they stayed in my class. A lot of our children dropped out because, I wasn't having it. You know, and they thought, hey, they can, you know, kind of talk over me and talk crazy and be like, no, you got the wrong one. So many of them dropped out because they couldn't have their way. You know, like, hey, these are my ways. See you later. Unfortunately, they left. When they left, primarily Hispanic kids. About 70% of the kids in my class ended up being Hispanic kids. They wrote some beautiful stories, though. They were from Honduras, Guatemala, Puerto Rico, from all over. Hall High School has the largest number of Hispanic kids in schools.
Yeah, that's going to end after this year.
Yeah, they're going to go
to Southwest.
But they were some brilliant kids who, you know, their language wasn't great, but at the same time, enough to communicate with me and share their stories. You know, their migration here to the United States. You know, many of people are talking to these kids. Many people are talking to these kids about go back to where you come from. Some of them would like to go back because, you know, if you think about it, where is Puerto Rico located? It's by the ocean.
Yeah.
Where some of these, you know, Guatemala, places like that, they're located by beautiful bodies of water, and they also are areas where they are seeing mango trees, avocado trees, all these beautiful, right in their yards and backyards, and they fresh fish, you know, all that. So those kids were reflecting on those kind of things in the narratives they were writing for me, and they were like, I want to go back to that because there was kind of a little argument came up in our class about food, and the kids from those countries were laughing at the dietary habits of America. Because they were like, y'all eat pizza and blah, blah, they were like laughing. They were talking about, they were sharing about how they're used to eating grilled chicken, their mothers making their own tortillas, all that stuff. They were just laughing at Taco Bell and all that stuff. Like, y'all eat that? That's not Mexican food. You know, so it was, or Hispanic food. But they were talking about the black beans and all the different kind of plantains and all that stuff. And it was interesting that they really, we are in bad shape because these folks are bilingual and international, and we're not in this country. You know, we're arrogant to think that we're smart and better than everybody else, but we're limited to one language. We go outside the United States, we can't survive. But folks are coming here speaking multiple languages.
I was watching some show, and I'm sorry I don't remember it, but they were, God, I hate that. And you know, I want to say it was Sleeper Cell. And although it was an espionage type series, something jumped out to me, and I think it was Sleeper Cell. There was a scene where this guy was reading in English, and yeah, it was Sleeper Cell now that I think about it. And he said, "This is my 5th language I'm learning."
Wow.
Now that had nothing to do with the story as a whole, but he was just part of, they just added that as far as conversation. And when you said that, you're exactly right. Many of us only have one language. And we, you know, in order to, if you speak multiple languages, that's directly related to your intelligence.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that. And most people around, and Africans, oh, it's amazing how many languages they speak. They 7. I mean, the sister from South Africa who just won Miss Universe. She goes by Zosie. I think it says she speaks 8 languages.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We have to do a better. And see, this is why, Patrick, I've been saying for the longest. You know, there's a fight for the Little Rock School District here.
Yeah.
And what I've said for the longest, and I get a lot of my friends who support LRSD, they get mad at me because I've said for the longest, I said what we ought to do is take that charter school money, build our own charter schools, and educate our own children. That's what we ought to be doing because we are the only ones that can. And then you look at statistics. I mean, even white kids prefer black teachers.
Yeah.
That blew me away when I read that story.
They like the diversity. They're learning something new and different.
Exactly.
They see they see our flavor. Everybody knows we got flavor. I mean, just style, charisma.
Yeah.
I mean, look at commercials nowadays. Every time I look on television, it's like, wow, y'all just hijacking our culture to promote everything from sodas to socks to you name it. They're hijacking our culture because the hipness and coolness.
And ESPN is bad about it.
They're bad about it. They're ridiculous. I mean, they don't even care anymore.
Right.
I mean, they just claim our culture because you know. I mean, that's the thing that we have to celebrate. You know, and I'm so glad that's why Black Focus Radio is here. You call it Black Focus because that is your focus, and you know that is what
unabashedly my focus.
Unabashedly focus. You know, because this is what we need people to understand. We have to focus on our culture if we're talking about enrichment, if we're talking about moving forward, if we're talking about saving our children, saving our community. You got to understand who you are. Self-definition is important. That's why I'm doing this journal. You have to know who you are, you know, and accept who you are. You know, no one's perfect. We all got our issues. I got my issues. I'm crazy. I'll get out. I mean, I recognize that I have issues that I'm working on constantly as an adult. You know, as I get older, I'm getting better at that. And we all have to recognize that. So we ask that our children do the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, and we be their guides. But most certainly self-definition, knowing who you are, accepting and celebrating who you are. All the culture all the history goes with your culture. Africa wasn't perfect.
No.
It was not perfect,
No.
you know. I mean, there were some things in Africa that is dark, but at the same time, it's more glory and beauty that occurred in Africa. You know, that we need to understand and celebrate and not be ashamed of.
No doubt about it.
It's just so beautiful once you read about it. I mean, you can be in tears. I mean, I just watched something the other day on 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago where they were these temples. They had actually dug into the ground and built these temples. You know, it was like, wait a minute, dirt temples?
Yeah.
Y'all dug into the ground. Now they're trying to figure out how they're gonna save these temples because they were basically just built from mud, man. It's like, oh my God. I mean, and they were just beautiful structures. I mean, just and the paint they used, what they used to make the paint berries and things like that. You know, just chemistry to the max.
Yeah.
So that's what you're doing, Black Focus Radio, letting folks know that I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm not saying you're inferior to me. I'm just celebrating
Who I am.
who you are. And that's important. And that's why your show is so important because we have to do that. Because there's not enough. You wish we can afford it. You can be on 24/7. 365. But that's what we need. If it's not you, somebody here that's doing it.
And more of us have to do it. And I was excited. I don't know what's going to come of them, but there are some black news networks that are about to come online here real soon, as well. I don't know where they're going to go, but I'm hoping that the key. The best form of flattery is copying someone.
Right.
And what black people what has happened to us is that we've been copied. I go back to when 10 came out with Bo Derek,
right, and
she had the braids,
right,
and all of a sudden all of the white magazines were, we had been wearing braids as kids because I tell kids back in the day. I met a brother the other day and he had his hair all over his head, and I said, bro, why don't you go to the barber and let him shape that fro up?
Right. You
really look sharp. He said, fro? So you don't know what an afro is? He said, oh. He didn't even know what the word fro meant. But, I tell kids all the time that if you simply go back and look at some of the things that we did, you'd realize that this is nothing new, bro.
Nothing new.
This is nothing new.
The clothes you're wearing.
The braids, as a matter of fact. I learned about 2 years ago that the slaves used to braid pathways to freedom in hair. I didn't know that until 2 years ago. As learned as I am. And there I was as a kid, letting Betty White, girl down the street, good friend of mine, her younger brother was Donna White. She charged me $5 to braid my hair. Okay?
That's the science to that.
Exactly.
The geometry to that.
Exactly. I mean, if you see some of the geometric shapes that these sisters be putting in these heads, oh my God. They don't understand even where that came from.
Yeah.
We have to do a better job. And that's why Patrick, I'm so glad you came in today because I've been touting for the longest that every daycare, every preschool ought to be teaching African history.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Every church, just like you have Bible study, you ought to take a moment. If you have a moment in church to read the scripture, you should have a moment in church to read something about black history. I know.
When I grew up going to church, we did have
I know.
that message.
Well, I had Miss Faison as our organist. So, and Miss Tally, so we did that little church right across the street from Central. We did Black History at that church. Every Sunday.
That's what I didn't understand. It wasn't no Black History Month. We didn't wait no whole year.
Till February.
Right.
And, back then it would start off as Black History Day. Then it was Black History Week. Then as got up to a month. Man, I celebrate Black History 24/7, 365 days a year.
When you wake up that way.
That's how I am, bro.
You history. We wake up when you're looking at it. That's a long lineage. We need to recognize.
Man, when I look in the mirror, I say, "Man, you're a fine black man."
Okay,
it's not arrogance. It's just celebrating who I am. You understand what I'm saying? That's where it begins. And my kids do the same thing. They're looking at me, Dad, you're just so weird sometimes. I said, but y'all just like me.
Right.
Y'all just like
me.
So
you passed it right on to
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is a great venture on your part. I'm hoping to have a rites of passage camp in June. I have not begun to put it together yet. When I do, you're on the list to participate.
Keep me in mind. Yeah,
okay?
definitely.
And more importantly, I'm going to want some of those books.
Okay.
So we're going to put together somewhere we can buy some. Notice, we're going to buy some books. Notice, now, typically on the show, when authors will send me free books. And that's fine. But what we got to do is make sure that we are supporting one another. We need to buy some of those books. Okay? If you're out there and you're listening to this show, you got a young black male who is having problems in school. Man, part of the reason I could write because I could read. Because, if I could see how the sentence was structured, it was easy for me to write that sentence.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
But if you never read, you never understand sentence context, syntax, and structure, so you never get an idea of how to read. So I used to, when I was in composition in high school, I used to love it when teachers said, when you finish your paper, you can leave. I was gone.
See you later.
Or essay test. Give me an essay test if you want to. I wear you out. I never failed an essay test.
I was a definition person.
You know what I'm saying?
I was a definition. Give me some definition.
I read the dictionary also.
I was giving you some definition.
But see,
I
all
love
of those
words.
things help you to understand language. And then once you begin to understand language, all the other stuff becomes a lot more clearer.
Yeah.
Because if you can't read the instructions, how are you going to figure out what the cosine of a sine is?
So
You see?
To my folks at the day point, reading. Books, we recognize the economy is tough right now. Books can be expensive too.
Yeah.
So what I encourage folks to do, first of the year, make sure as part of your New Year's resolution, everybody in the household got a library card.
There you go.
You know, free books, any book that you want to read, make sure you read all the books that's on the Coretta Scott King awards list. Make sure every child in the family read those books. From pre-K all the way up to teen books. They have books that, you know, the library has selected the Coretta Scott King Book Award books. Read those first. But everybody, let's please get a library card, because I recognize, even myself, sometimes when I want to go buy one of my favorite books, I'll watch maybe go on sale. I'll look for it online on sale. Because, I mean, we all have budgets.
Yeah.
You know, and some people, you know, if you got 3 or 4 kids, you can't buy everybody a book a week.
Exactly.
You know, but you definitely go to the library and check out a book a week.
Yeah.
You know, so I want to encourage folks to definitely do that. So you can kind of do the rites of passage things that Dave and I have been talking about. Because reading is part of rites of passage.
Yeah.
You know, you cannot go through life and be illiterate. So thank you again, man. You know, for allowing me.
This has been great,
you know,
man.
to be here.
I only plan to keep you for like 5 minutes.
Hey, brother, I'm glad
You've been there for an hour and a half.
No, I enjoy it. You know how we get together. This ain't nothing, man. You know, I love it.
So, and by the way, we got some people listening from Philadelphia. So if that's you, Dr. Lowry, you know, what's up? I hope you're doing well. I know she had some spinal fusion surgery a couple of months ago, but I think she's doing fine.
Much better.
Now.
Yeah, she told
Yeah,
me
she's
that,
doing
yeah.
much better now. So, and I think she's getting ready to do a compilation of some of us who went to
Yeah.
the Black Male Symposium. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. But Patrick, you are doing yeoman's work out there. I respect you, my brother. And you just keep up the great work, man. Don't let anyone discourage you. You are in your calling.
Thank you.
And if you walk away from it, things will never be the same.
I appreciate
Okay.
that, man. Yeah, and you know, and thank you again. And when you call on brothers like yourself, say, hey, man, I'm in town. Can you help? You know, can I come through the show, have a conversation with you about what I'm doing? So I appreciate you for giving me this opportunity, because as you well know, we don't have the distribution channels like a major publisher.
Exactly.
And this is not a major publishing book. I know that, you know. So that's why I publish it myself. I know what's happening with young people around the country. So like you said, this is my calling. I observe something. I'm a system analyst. I'm trained in that. You know, to go look at a system and see what's failing. How do you fix it?
How do you fix it?
How do you fix it? So me being a trained
In the computer industry, we call it a troubleshooter.
a troubleshooter. I mean, so I was a system analyst. My job was to find out why we're losing so much money buying this particular part. How can we save money building this part? So that's what I was trying to do. Sometimes we used to say, hey, well, you don't need this technician to work on this project because you already got this engineer who has the same skill set.
Yeah.
So get rid of that $90,000 a year job. So that was my work, analyst. So now for me, working in school, seeing these boys who can't write, it just practice. Back to your point, repetition.
Yeah.
You writing every day, you're bound to get better.
Yep. You can't have but.
Once you start journaling, you're going to see their first few days of journaling. Then by the time they get to the middle, there's going to be more content. They may have to say, well, this is not enough lines for me to journal. I'm going to give me a bigger notebook to journal in. So that's the goal. Back to your point of repetition, and what's that? Practice.
Yep.
You know. So that's where we have to go in this. In this, and I'm not afraid to say it. We're in a war.
Oh yeah, I say it every day.
We're in a war, man.
But the sad thing about it, Patrick, we haven't realized.
We're
At
in
least
a
some
war.
of us have not realized that we're in a
We're
war.
in a war. Intellect is Carruthers call it intellectual warfare.
Yeah.
So get your intellect together. Be ready. Be prepared, because it's coming at you at some point.
By the way, if you didn't recognize some of the names of these authors that myself and Patrick were throwing out today, you might need to do a little research.
Yes.
Okay? Use that thing that you call a phone that's actually a computer and Google it. My thing with my son and daughter, Dad, how do you? Google is a wonderful tool.
It really is. Yeah.
It really is.
Man, it got me out.
We gotta go, man. Good job, man. I'm so proud of you,
I
man.
appreciate you, man.
And it's just so weird how we met back up. Every time I said, I'm sitting up there looking at Patrick. He looking at me. Man, don't I know you? Yeah, I know you. Where you from, Little Rock? I'm from Little Rock.
Right.
And we were sitting on stage.
Dropping knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
On the East Coast.
On the East Coast.
Southern wisdom.
There you go, man. Hey, good job, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate
Hey, we got to get out of here. Remind you tomorrow, Black Focus Radio will be back. We're here every day. You know that Monday through Friday, of course, the weekly sports magazine on Saturdays. Make sure you check us out. Also, if you want to hear more of this show or you didn't get the whole show, make sure you go out to Apple Podcasts, go out to Google Podcasts. You can download the podcast now, okay? And there are a number of other shows that are out there as well, but you can carry it everywhere you go. Share this with your friends. Share this book about Patrick. Look, if you're not a friend of Patrick Oliver, it may be too late because he's probably up to 5,000 by now on Facebook. But reach out to Patrick, send him an instant message and say, man, how can I get one of those books? How can I get 2 of those books? As a matter of fact, why don't you buy them for your son for the holidays instead of buying that new PlayStation game? You're going to spend $60, $75 for that PlayStation game. I guarantee you that book is not that much, and it will serve him a lot better. I'm just saying. Let me get off my soapbox, because y'all know I like to stand on it a lot. Okay? Remember, brilliant minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Which do you possess? See you tomorrow. Good stuff, man.